Before we kick off today, I'd like to say a huge thank you to everyone who has tuned into the Build Your Base podcast so far. We've had loads of great feedback and reviews, and we're very proud to announce that we are currently the #1 ranked podcast in the fitness category in Thailand. And we're currently #3 in the huge health and fitness category. So please do share this podcast with any friends that may benefit. Let's try and get to #1 in health and fitness in Thailand. Thank you again. We're very happy to be helping our listeners build their strongest Bangkok life. And before we start today, I'd like to read one of the reviews we've received in our first few days, which is from Charman, and this is what they had to say. It's great that my favorite gym has decided to start making these episodes. I'm loving that I can now work out wherever I am. Thank you for making fitness easier and better. Thank you, Charman. We really appreciate your review, and it's great to hear your thoughts and how it's helped you out. Please do leave us a review on iTunes after you've listened to this podcast. We would really love to hear your thoughts, and we will read out one review before each episode. Here is today's show, which is with base coach Jason on the importance of strength training. Welcome to the Build Your Base podcast. I am very happy today to welcome Jason Deknatel, who is one of the coaches here at Base, to the podcast. Thank you for joining us today, Jason.
Hey Jack, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
It has indeed, mate. Looking forward to the time we can actually have a real in-person conversation. At the moment, we are doing our podcasts on Zoom. Today, we are talking about resistance training and the importance of that, why everyone should be including that in their program. Before we get into that, just tell us a little bit about yourself, Jason, your story, how you came to work at Base.
I did my first year of university in business management, business administration. Hated every minute of it. Couldn't wait to get out of that. So I figured about 4 weeks into that first year, I was like, yeah, something needs to change, you know. And I always loved sports, you know. I played football growing up as well as any other sport in school, really. I just loved competing, just loved everything about it, to be honest. Yeah, I looked at other schools and other programs I had and came across exercise science, which stuck out to me the most. So I transferred to a new school next year, and then honestly loved every minute of it. I went from counting down the days until school was over to, you know, looking forward to the holiday being over so I could go back. Honestly, everything about it. Like, you had a wide variety of classes in exercise science, you know, from like sports psychology to motor behavior and patterns across the lifespan to athletic injuries, prevention and care of that, as well as just like, you know, typical strength and conditioning classes. And yeah, I just loved all of it. So I figured, you know, this was a good sign that this was the industry I wanted to get into. And initially, after I graduated, I did my strength and conditioning certification, and I wanted to get into that field, really, you know, work with like professional teams. So I got in touch with a few people from like football teams, or some people try and start their own strength and conditioning business. But, you know, after talking to a couple of people, I quickly learned that that industry basically doesn't exist yet in Thailand. A little bit behind on that, you know, when you say strength and conditioning to any coach, they're just like, oh, you know, that's just run 10K, do 100 push-ups, and, you know, you'll be fine. So a little bit behind on that. I met Lee at my CSCS course. You know, she said a lot of great things about Base and about you, Jack. So, you know, I figured let's get in touch, see what happens. And a little bit later, here I am. I think 2 years on now, I've been at Base, and it's flown by.
Yeah, it has indeed. It's been a great 2 years, and yeah, really happy to have you on the team, Jason, and really good to see how much you've developed since you have been at Base. Jason, I'm interested to know, at what point did you start to appreciate the importance of strength training in your journey? Was it before you started your degree, or was it during the research that you were doing as part of your degree?
It was probably during my degree. So I had a pretty bad hamstring injury when I was 17. As I was doing my rehab, I learned a bit more about like the importance of resistance training, strength training, not just for performance, but probably more so for reducing the risk of injury. That's probably the first time I really like thought about it. Yeah, after I stopped playing football, I dipped my toes into strength training, powerlifting a bit, and then I really enjoyed the training process. So as I enjoyed that more, I sort of just started looking into it a bit more. You know, with my past history of the hamstring injury, I started looking into the data on that. Yeah, that's probably how it started, and since then it's just sort of snowballed into me being a full-time powerlifter, I guess.
Yeah, tell us a bit more about the kind of training that you do now. How does your training regimen look?
Especially just what you'd imagine a powerlifting program to be, mainly focusing around squat, bench, and deadlifts. let's just do that 4 times a week. And I pretend I do cardio once or twice a week. Probably should do that a bit more.
Maybe get some football games on the go.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that'll be my cardio, football once a year.
So can you tell the listeners, for those that don't know, what's the difference between powerlifting and strength training?
Yeah. Actually, that's a lot of people think they're the same thing, but really, strength training is more so specific to the task. The task could be cycling, could be triathlon, sprinting, pole vaulting, high jump, long jump, whereas powerlifting is specifically about 1 rep maxes for squat, bench, and deadlift. You know, it's even different to strongman, even though they do have squat events and deadlift events, they're more so for reps in a certain amount of time as opposed to 1 rep max absolute load. So even that in itself is different in terms of training stimulus and the actual strength expression skill. So yeah, like, a lot of clients will come in and they'll either ask me like, oh, are we doing powerlifting? I'm like, just because squat, bench, deadlift are in the program, we're not actively trying to increase your 1 rep max. We're not stepping out on the platform. These exercises are really good at carrying over to many other tasks, which is why, they're sort of like the steak and potatoes of a strength and conditioning program. Same, but different.
Why should people develop their 1 rep max? Because I think that's something that typical gym goers wouldn't really do. 3 sets of 10 is probably your classic set if you just walk into most chain gyms, let's say.
Yeah.
What are the benefits to really getting strong in that 1 rep max, your absolute maximum output for 1 repetition?
Honestly, unless you plan on competing in powerlifting or you want to test your 1 rep max, to put on Instagram and just see where you are, I don't think there's really any benefit to it. Unless you're like powerlifter or specifically want to increase that. If your goal is to just get generally stronger, you just want to put on a bit more muscle mass, maybe move a bit better, have a bit more power behind your forehand in tennis or something. Increasing your 1 rep max as opposed to increasing your 5 reps isn't really going to help. It's much more specific to the sport of powerlifting.
Interesting. Yeah. So why do you think people often associate being fit with just cardio? You often hear marathon runners are the fittest people. Attitudes are starting to train, and it's a message that we really want to push out at base that strength training is really important. But yeah, why do you think people sort of associate cardiovascular fitness with just being fit and strong?
That's a good question. My guess would be a little bit to do with, what you see in the movies. Anytime there's like a training montage and they think of like a Rocky movie or any sort of other sports movie, they're going on 10K runs, sweating, drenched, super tired, and that satisfaction at the end. But also probably like social factors, running something you can do with like your mates in the park or something, or you think of all these like running events, you get hundreds, thousands of people. It's like a fun thing to do. And probably a little bit from the medical industry as well. How many times you go to the hospital and doctors say, yeah, just go run. That's basically all the fitness advice they give, just go run. So it's sort of like ingrained in us, our society that, okay, I'm unhealthy, doctor said run, running's the answer.
Yeah, I think some of the reasons that people don't do strength training now is because some of the common misconceptions. I mean, when I used to train sort of 15 years ago, I used to think deadlifts were bad for your back, squats were bad for your knees. I don't know where I got that idea from, but I'd obviously picked it up from somewhere. And I think some of those misconceptions really carry even over to today. And again, although it's good to see it changing, I think those misconceptions do still exist. Can you tell us about any of the common misconceptions that you hear and, why they are not correct?
It's funny because I actually used to believe all that too before I started.
Right.
Before I started lifting, I was like, no, I'm not going to squat. I don't want my knees to get bad because I play football. I don't want my knees to get wrecked before I turn 20 or anything like that. But it's actually
how did it happen? Where did these things come from? Do you think?
I honestly have no idea. But yeah, it's like you say. Someone or some people at some point in my life said that, and it's just sort of got ingrained to me, and never thought twice about it. I thought that was just the norm. Yeah, I had my injury and I learned about it. I was like, wait, what do you mean this thing can, help mitigate the risk of injury? I thought it was supposed to be bad for you and all that. And then you start dabbing into the statistics and the science of it all. And actually lifting is statistically the safest thing you can do. It's much lower injury rate per 1,000 hours of activity than even recreational running. Yeah, you look at its role in reducing the risk of injury in team sports. There's lots of things outside of your control, like a player coming in with a double-footed slide tackle or hands flailing around. Like, you can't really control that, but, incorporating resistance training showed to reduce risk of injury, like muscle tears, by 30 to 50%. Yeah, so it's absolutely massive. Where this whole idea came from was probably like, people see someone have heavy weight on the back when they're squatting, they're like, oh, that must be bad for you. But you don't really think about the fact that they didn't start there. They didn't jump straight into a 250 kilo squat. They probably started at 40 and slowly built it up over time as your body gets strong and adapts. Yeah, I have no idea where this misconception comes from.
Do you think maybe people got confused between strength training for life and for performance and then strength training for sport? Because sometimes when you see those powerlifting competitions or the old strongman, and it's not so much about form and technique, it's just however you get the reps out, right? And maybe that's where some of the misconceptions came in.
Yeah, that's probably definitely it. Like most people, I guess, they're in their first exposure to any sort of lifting is like seeing some YouTube video, someone competing in it, 1 in 1,000 that goes completely wrong. Right, just looking at like competitors in general. Like I tell my clients that too. Like lifting for performance is different for lifting for like general health. Not saying that powerlifting is dangerous. Again, statistically, it's one of the safest sports in terms of injury rates. But like for competitive powerlifters, performance is number one. That's what we want to work on. But for general people, we just want to get you healthier, reduce your risk of injury, increase the density of your soft tissue and your bones and whatnot.
I think as well, the common misconception that weightlifting causes women to become really bulky and muscular comes from bodybuilding competitions. When you see the tan woman absolutely ripped, veins popping out on the front cover of the magazines. I think that's what scares women into doing strength training without realizing what those women are actually doing. It's going to be quite different to just a normal, regular strength program. Let's just touch on that for a moment, because I think that's something we've really seen change in terms of women's attitudes towards strength training. I think that's been a really positive thing. Does strength training make women bulky? Is that something they should be concerned about?
Short answer, no. I wish it was that easy. No, I mean, it's been great to see like the women of base, I guess, think of like Flo and Nock and stuff. I think and Shah, they've been great examples of like strength training doesn't make you bulky or not feminine or anything like that. And it's exactly like you said, they probably just saw a picture of a bodybuilder, who's been on cycles and training and meticulously dieting for decades and decades, and I tell my clients, even if you ate perfectly, trained perfectly for 20 years, you still won't look anywhere near like that. Just because you're not pumping yourself with the synthetics that they are, you might not even have the genetics for it. There's this great analogy, I love it, I use it all the time. If someone says they don't want to lift weights because they're scared to get bulky, it's literally like, I don't want to drive a car because I'm afraid I'll become a Formula 1 driver. It's literally quite like that. I think it is getting better. I wouldn't say all my female clients, probably about 50% of my female clients, you can see they're a little bit hesitant, like, oh, we're doing lifting heavy, even though heavy is relative to you. They're scared they're going to get bulky. I tell them, look, the day you wake up too bulky, then we can stop and do something else. But I guarantee it won't happen. And after a while, they can feel the changes, but they also notice, oh, I'm not suddenly looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger or anything like that. Like, I wish it was that easy.
I think it's a good message to get out that it is a slow process. You're not going to wake up one day looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger in drag. And if it is getting too much for you, you can always just dial it down, and it will start to reverse the process. Yeah,
exactly. Like slow process isn't even like a few weeks or months. It's literally decades, like the people at the top of the game, like the strength world, they spend every waking minute doing what they can to get bigger, stronger, and like maybe a couple decades later they'll get to where they are. It's not something that happens overnight. The amount of consistency and effort, like you won't get there by accident.
I think the encouraging thing to see is that a lot of women that are worried about it when they start strength training actually really start to embrace everything about it. They start to look good. They start to feel good. They start to perform better generally at life. They start to enjoy seeing their numbers go up. And actually, a lot of those concerns are put to one side once they actually start to do it. Have you had any clients that that's happened to?
Like the ones that, they started to see and feel like the progress, they feel better. They can see they're getting stronger. They like keep going after a while. And ironically, they get that quote unquote toned look that they've always been after. It's just like, I tried to tell you, but
the tone look doesn't come from doing 50 banded bicep curls, does it?
Yeah, I wish. If only.
So this episode is called Why Everyone Should Be Strength Training. Anything else that we've missed? Any other reasons that everyone should have strength training as part of their program?
Something that's probably not quite as clear cut, not really as mentioned, is probably more medical side of it. and how that can help your health in the sense of illness and illness prevention, more specifically stuff like sarcopenia and osteoporosis, where sarcopenia is basically essentially a deterioration of muscle mass over time. It does naturally happen slowly as you get older, start to get accelerated once you're 60, but it can be mitigated and even reversed in some cases by resistance training. People ask, oh, why is it important to have muscle mass? We find strength is the biggest predictor for reducing all-cause mortality, basically. Like we test people's grip strength over decades, 30-year-olds all the way to 80 plus. Test their grip strength, flexibility, their cardio health, and basically grip strength was found to be the biggest predictor for all-cause mortality and quality of life. And you can think of something simple as, if you are strong enough to squat an extra 5 kilos, you're strong enough to get out of the chair, go for a walk, play with your grandkids as you get older. But also, like, it's really important to think about, like, the bone density increase as well. As you get older, your bones, start to get a little more brittle. The chance of you breaking something when you fall increases. Again, resistance training can help to mitigate that risk as it also increases your bone density. It's more correlational and association as opposed to outright causality. But, we find people more lean muscle mass tend to spend less time on a respirator, tend to spend less time in an ICU. Women with more lean muscle mass who have breast cancer have a better chance of beating it and not getting it a second time. All this stuff is association, but if all it takes is resistance training 3 or so times a week, and it's associated with you reducing the risk of all these diseases and like problems with health in the future, cost to benefit ratio is just massive, and it's almost impossible to ignore, I think. Even if you're an athlete and you don't really care about your physique, you don't want to be don't need to be shredded with abs or anything like that. I think, just look at the health benefits of resistance training. It's probably the closest thing to the fountain of youth we have.
Yeah, I think aging well and being able to perform well as you age, and by perform, I don't mean running a 100-meter sprint. I mean, getting out of a chair, being able to go on walks, being able to play with your grandkids. That
just
I think
like
is huge.
You don't have to be put in an old people's home.
Right.
You can still walk up and down the stairs. Fine. Just little things like that, but it goes a long way. Sarcopenia, I believe it's classified as disease, and it's one of these things that is like often overlooked, even in the medical community a bit. Like you see more doctors now who are, just through their own interest, are looking at resistance training and other aspects of health even more. They're trying to voice the concerns and the benefits of resistance training when it comes to, battling sarcopenia and stuff, especially looking at the prediction of strength and all-cause mortality.
Yeah, it's great to see the shift towards people wanting to strength train more. I think I've seen it change massively in the last 10 years, especially here in Thailand. And it's good to see older people actually coming into base and training as well. Do you have any older clients?
I think the oldest client I have is about 50 something. So I'm going to say no, not old, just in case they're listening to this. But I've definitely seen like older people come in and do PT, and it honestly makes me so happy. We're starting to see a shift in terms of like the societal views and beliefs around strength training. And even just from a pure anecdotal standpoint, when you see them just walking a little bit better each session, as the weeks and months go by, they're sort of walking gingerly a little bit before, and then after that they're walking a little bit better. You can see them getting a little bit stronger. Stronger for them might be going from doing some bench squats, just sitting down on a bench and standing up, to doing a 4-kilo goblet squat. For them that is massive. Just little progress like that, and then you can literally see it as they walk out. So I think that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I think if you look around base, there's so many of those cases, right? It is anecdotal, but you look around and you see people with less back pain, with less knee pain, they're walking better, they're feeling better, and I think that's just great to see the impact that strength training has. Let's push the health benefits to one side a second. That's all nice, but let's be honest, a lot of people just want to look good. How does strength training impact how you look, how your body looks?
Your typical guy, 20-year-olds, like take me for example, you just want to get jacked, look good, walk around topless on the beach and feel good about yourself. Like obviously you want to put on muscle as well, but also for the women, like a lot of women want that toned look, but that's basically having some sort of musculature with low body fat. The muscle is what gives you that shape. Put function aside, let's just purely focus on aesthetics. Muscle is what gives you that sort of nice tone, quote unquote toned look, that nice shape. And well, the best way to build muscle is resistance training. So ladies, if you want to have nice arms or nice glutes or whatever it is, pick up a barbell and let's get to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like we mentioned earlier in the podcast, the changes do happen slowly. So if you're not happy with the changes, it's not going to happen overnight. So give it a go, commit to it, give it 3 to 6 months and just see how it goes. And we've just had so many cases of women doing that and really, really loving the results, not just in how they look, but also how they feel as well. All right, Jason, if someone's listening to this podcast and they want to start strength training, where's a good place to start?
Well, no bias, but I think the best place is to come to base. That'll be great. That'll be a great place to start. But no,
if they're based in America, let's say, and they can't come to base.
Yeah, if you can't make it to base, find any sort of open gym that has like a squat rack or allows you to deadlift, and just focus on the the main compound lifts, the multi-joint movements like your squats, bench press, overhead press, rows, deadlifts. Get those right. Try to get stronger in those lifts and certain rep ranges over the years before you start incorporating like the more single joint, fancier stuff.
Thank you, Jason. Really appreciate your thoughts. I'm sure the listeners will as well. Thank you for joining us. Where can we find you?
I guess Instagram. Yeah, I don't post too much, but if just feel free to send me a message. I'm always happy to chat. Or you can even find me on Facebook. Like, feel free to just shoot me a message anytime. I'm always happy to chat, happy to elaborate a bit more on anything that was mentioned in this podcast. Ask me anything and I'll be happy to have a chat.
We will leave links to those in the show notes of the episode, Jason. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Looking forward to getting you back on to talk about nutrition for performance. So we'll catch you soon.
So, Jack, see you in a bit.